name is Shay Richford. I am so happy to be here and see all of you today. I am the CEO and co-founder of FutureWise Group and also a startup, Metatron Intelligence Lab. I am so excited to share with you our topic today. I'd like to welcome you all to Code Switching the Algorithm, Race, Equity, and Ethics of AI in Education. We're going to jump right into it because I'm not going to keep you guys in here a minute past 9:30, okay? So, good morning to all. I want to jump right in and acknowledge that we are living through a defining moment. Artificial intelligence is no longer confined by Silicon Valley labs. It's become a silent architect shaping how students are admitted, evaluated, counseled, and even disciplined today. On the surface, these technologies promise personalization, efficiency, and equity. But underneath that promise lies danger if we don't acknowledge it today. If left unchecked, AI has the power to replicate, even amplify the very same problems that we have in education today that we're trying to dismantle. Let's be clear, bias in technology is nothing new, and I'm sure we all know this. We can look back to the 1980s and we have facial recognition systems that have misidentified darker skin tones at an alarming rate. We've had policing tools that have over-targeted communities of color, and we've seen the consequences when this is left unchecked. Now these same dynamics are entering our classrooms and campuses. Imagine an AI career counselor that steers certain students away from STEM opportunities because it's skewed training data. Or imagine an admissions scoring tool that undervalues students from rural or low-income schools. These are not hypothetical. These are things that are actually happening today, and I want to acknowledge that. But here in North Carolina, at A&T, which is a powerhouse of Black excellence and innovation, we have a unique responsibility in not only to integrate these issues, but to imagine and demand a better future. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to sit down, relax, and listen to our two panelists and get some real feedback today, okay? Let's see some smiles, everybody. I know you guys just had breakfast, okay? Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna start with Dr. Warren. Can you please introduce yourself? I'm gonna bring the microphone over to you. Can you please introduce yourself? And then Mr. Cook, if you can introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. That's one of the reasons why I don't eat breakfast in the morning, is because I know it makes me sleepy and all that good stuff, so I like to stay hungry and just make sure I'm pushing all the time. So I'm Derwin Warren. I work for Cisco Systems. I focus on cloud security, AI security, so a lot of emerging technology. I'm also the president of a nonprofit organization called the Meaningful Power Foundation, based out of the state of Michigan. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And I also sit on the board of Spark-NC, which is doing a lot of revitalization of a lot of the ways on how schools are teaching our students things like cybersecurity, AI, entrepreneurship, and a lot of other things of that nature as well. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Chase Koch. I'm a 15-year-old student at FutureWise Academy and founder of FuturePath AI and co-host of Esports, Metaverse, and Beyond podcast.
Okay, thank you. This is a different panel because we can't talk about AI in education without having a student here with us, right? Or that would be biased. So we're gonna jump right in. Derwin, when we talk about AI ethics in education, security often gets overlooked, Can you explain what AI security really means? Not just protecting systems, but protecting students from biased data, surveillance, and obscure outcomes, and how that differs from traditional cybersecurity.
Yeah, this is actually a very, very important topic. These are things that I talk about on a daily basis when I'm out speaking with different type of customers that are, right now they're doing a lot of struggling with just trying to deploy AI, but now they're looking at the next generation of it, meaning like how is it going to be beneficial for our organization and how can we stay away from things like bias and things of that nature. From a cybersecurity perspective, there are some things that are intertwined in there. So typically in cybersecurity, you'll hear things such as the CIA triad, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So it's all about just making sure that data systems are kept away from unauthorized access, making sure that the data stays within a certain type of state so that it hasn't been tampered with, and then making sure that it's available to users as it's needed. So all of that is still going to be within the realm of AI security as well. But then we start going down this other path, making sure that the data is protected, meaning the training data. So this is the data, pretty much the data set for the most part. So after it's been cleaned and transformed and things of that nature, these are the things that are going to influence the AI's behavior. And this is very, very critical from a security perspective in the AI world, because if the training data is compromised, which we call data poisoning in a lot of ways, then it can influence the way that the AI system is then going to behave. So that's a huge, huge part of why we need to try to keep the security in AI, in a lot of cases, very, very safe on that side of the house. There's also other two components as well. It's all about how consumers, such as ourselves, access specific types of data, meaning utilizing third-party tools like a Copilot, a ChatGPT, a Gemini. So we need to make sure that those things are being leveraged in the proper way. And then there is the other side, which I was kind of speaking to a little bit about, is about keeping the application safe. So making sure that the training data is kept safe and making sure that it's not tampered with, because once that happens, now we can start to get down into a path where the AI will now be influenced by the behavior of that and possibly start to bleed over into some possible biases. There's also another component of it as well, which is on the data science side. So the data scientist, the person who actually manipulates or controls that training data, if you will, we need to make sure they are neutral in that aspect as well. We want to make sure they're not bringing in their own opinions, their own personal biases and things of that nature, which can then be a whole other set of security mechanisms that are outside of an attacker. These would be more sided from an insider threat side of the house. So multiple different realms there, all complex, extremely complex. It's good to get in on the ground floor now to understand these constraints, because like I said, now just most people are still just trying to figure out how they're going to deploy it. But after that, they have to figure out how they're actually going to secure the data as well.
Thank you, Derwin. Okay, Chase, you're up next. As a 15-year-old, from your vantage point, what is the biggest advantage for having your generation using AI?
I believe the biggest advantage for my generation using AI is the fact that we're digital natives. We've been using the internet since our birth, really, and we watch it evolve around us. And I think that will give us a head start in the development of AI and learning how to use it. And you know, we're watching as the jobs in education system are changing right before our eyes. If a study by Forbes saying 30% of jobs by 2030 will be completely transformed by artificial intelligence. And I think that this generation is aware of that, and we're seeing it used more and more by people my age every day. You're using ChatGPT, whether that's to help understand the subject that you're learning better, or to help you make a decision. It's these types of tiny things that will really add up, and to create a generation that's fluent in using AI and effective at that. And I believe that's the biggest advantage of my generation in our use of AI.
Okay, thank you. Derwin, AI doesn't always operate in a vacuum. Humans are always in the loop. How do human biases, teacher choices, or even subtle cultural assumptions end up becoming security risks? When they get baked into the AI systems that guide students' futures.
Yeah, so this speaks a lot to where I was bleeding into on the first question. Is a lot of times we think that, you know, the usage of like a ChatGPT or Gemini, things of that nature, that's the fear component of it all. But in a lot of cases, it starts to bleed outside to just being, you know, very humanistic. I used to support a lot of different manufacturing companies. And one of the first things that I started to realize is that the actual personnel were the ones that were bringing a lot of the security risks to the actual organization. You know, they were doing a lot of things within the workplace and with the technology that GM or Chrysler and Ford, these all different type of places will offer them, but they would utilize them in some very incorrect ways, and that would open up the organization to a lot more attacks, and then making a lot of the data a little bit more accessible to that it should not have been. So a lot of times we'll have to make sure that all of the personnel, specifically like the data scientists, the teachers, things of that nature, are enabled and educated on how to keep these different types of software available and safe. And instead of just giving a tool set or a toolkit or adopting a specific type of vendor software, they need to make sure that they are pushing these different type of vendors to make sure that they're transparent in the way that they're training the data, how they're removing biases, and how they're just keeping that data safe instead of just adopting it and then allowing just the young people to be able to leverage it.
Thank you. Okay, Chase, back to you. So you spoke with us about the advantages. Do you find there will be any challenges, or are there currently any challenges with your generation using AI? And if so, share with us.
Oh, certainly. I believe the biggest challenge with this generation, really any generation using artificial intelligence, is to find how to use it effectively. And by this, I mean knowing all the tools that are available to you, and as well as putting in prompts to use it in the most efficient manner. So starting with knowing about all the tools, there are artificial intelligence for anything. You can use AI to upscale images, a chatbot like ChatGPT, or analytical AI. So there are all sorts of artificial intelligence. But I found that many people my age and even older aren't necessarily aware of these AI. And I think that's a big challenge when people only think of artificial intelligence as ChatGPT, when in reality, it has far more uses than just that. And then even beyond knowing where the tools are, it's using the tools that you know about effectively. Because when you input a prompt on ChatGPT, for example, the best output you'll get is only as good as the prompt you give in. And I'm seeing a lot of people my age don't effectively use ChatGPT and use a prompt that makes sense necessarily, and they don't get output that they want to receive. So I believe that's the biggest issue that we're finding with this generation of users, and we're going to have to work past that as a society to more effectively communicate with artificial intelligence and be aware of the tools that we have available.
Okay, thank you, Chase. And I want you to follow up with one more question. How do you envision students like yourself shaping AI to be a bit more equitable for everyone in America?
Well, we're finding students from all sorts of backgrounds using artificial intelligence, and that's creating more and more diverse space in the AI space. And I believe that within the next few years, as I already said, there are tools for everything, and we're seeing that coming from more diverse users. An example of this, my company, Future Path AI, is focused on creating a system that allows people from all sorts of communities find the college and career pathway that's meant for them. And that's one example. You can go to any college, whether it's a trade school, an HBCU, or an Ivy League, and it finds you the correct path to get to that college and what sort of career you want to focus on while you're in college. And that's just one example of an equitable AI that can help people from all across America. I believe we're going to be seeing more of that in the upcoming years.
Okay, thank you. Derwin, looking ahead, as AI becomes more embedded in classrooms and admissions, what do you see as the biggest ethical or security challenges, especially for underrepresented students?
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to being able to look past just the ones and zeros, the mathematical part of it. So in the AI/data science world, it's very statistical. So it can be very just on or off, if you will. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm a statistician myself. I love that. I love that nature of being able to understand going left or going right. But I think in this situation, when we start getting to bias and ethics, we have to make sure that we do embed some emotional intelligence into it. And I know a lot of people are very fearful of AI. AI is not sentient just yet. It doesn't have any emotions. It can't really think for itself as of yet. It is going to get there. So just to make sure everybody is aware of that, it's not there yet. So we do have to make sure that those who are in control of the data sets, in control of the toolkits, the software applications that we're providing specifically to our personnel, to the young people in the school systems, that they do have some emotional intelligence tied to them. So for instance, we don't want to make sure that we only look at specific zip codes. A specific zip code can be tied to maybe possibly labeling a certain large group of people that's just at risk without understanding who those people are, what their behaviors are and what they believe in, things of that nature. So you have to be very careful about just only caring about the ones and zeros. It can shed some light to help you along, to be able to some level of understanding, but you do have to just be very careful about that part of it. So being able to just educate, enable the people who are going to be dealing with the data in itself, making sure that they transform the data properly, clean the data properly, And then one of my professors when I was in my doctoral program always told me to make sure that you're asking the right questions. And to be honest with you, in the AI world, we call it a data science question, which is a very specific question to ask. I think Chase was hitting on it properly about how to effectively garner your prompts and get what you want specifically out of that data set. Not asking a question, well, do men make more money than women? I mean, I think we'll know from statistical purposes that we'll know that's the case, but there may be a little bit more of a deeper question that we can ask there to be able to find out if there's possible bias or if we're using ethics in that type of a data set.
Okay, thank you both. Now, I'd like to just interject. I explained earlier that I am a business owner, and typically our company, we create trainings and modules for companies and institutions. And I'd like to share with you a bit of research that I came across, because we also research extensively. There was a study that was conducted in August, and there were representatives from the University of Chicago, Stanford University, and Allen Institute. And so this is in comparison to what Derwin and what Chase were saying previously. This study looked at how AI viewed African Americans. They did an extensive study on this. And they found that generally AI found African Americans to be overwhelmingly positive. And they associated this group of people with words. They received prompts back from AI, words such as brilliant, intelligent, and passionate. Okay? So they took it one step further. So they wanted to know how AI viewed African American language. Okay? So when they put in different prompts and they asked AI how they felt, they saw AI felt very differently about African American language. Okay? The feedback they received from AI and their large language models, they spit out negative stereotypes, literally terms like dumb, lazy, and stupid, okay, as far as the language. AI assigns speakers of African American language as lower prestige jobs, and they actually equated African American language to having more convictions. And so typically what they found was they assimilate African American language, and I'm saying the term that they used in the study, okay? African American language with a lot of grammatical differences and different verb uses and tenses, okay? And so this is a real issue. I wanted to speak about this with you all today because we have various communities in America, we know this, correct? And different communities use different terms. And so this makes a huge difference when we interact with AI. So as Chase and Derwin were explaining, as individuals use prompts and they ask these questions to AI, depending on what you put in will be what you get out, okay? So if you put in a sentence that AI feels as though is an inadequate sentence, you might get an inadequate answer, or you might not get the answer you're looking for at all. And this is a huge problem. And so this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I named this session Code Switching the Algorithm, okay? So we have to be mindful, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone from all communities, we have to be mindful of what we put in, what prompts we put in. We have to be mindful of what we're asking AI. And so that's why we need to be working with AI more and more. We need to learn to be creative and learn how AI thinks and how AI thinks of us. And so this is so important. And so I'm going to take this another step. I'm going to give you another example of how hurtful this can be. Imagine somebody's going for a job interview. Okay, can you guys hear me?
It died.
Oh no, okay. Imagine you all go for a job interview. And so your hiring manager loves you. And now they're using an AI tool to scour social media, your social media, and they find language that they feel is not appropriate. That AI tool can go and recommend that you should not get that position. Literally, this is happening. I don't know, how many of you have heard of such a thing? Okay, so this is a huge issue. This is something that we need to be discussing more and more. And as I said, when I conduct the trainings for schools or businesses, it's so important. We really stress on the prompts and the information that you give to AI. And so it truly understands your needs and wants, okay? And so the last thing I wanted to share with you also, I recently read that there were indications that we may possibly have less and less college administration, okay? And what they're thinking about doing is replacing college interviews with humans. This is true. What they're thinking about doing is using the same general AI all over the world, not just in America, all over the world, so that student candidates would be interfacing with AI for their interview, and then this AI would recommend if this candidate should go to this school or if this candidate should just go to certain other schools. And so we in the future will see steering if we continue at this rate and don't address this bias, okay? This is a huge factor. And so Derwin and Chase really stressed that today, that we really cannot overlook biases that AI has, good or bad bias, right? This is something we're going to be using more and more in classrooms, from young children to college level to even jobs, us getting jobs in the future, right? And so we really have to talk about this. We have to have more apps working with AI. We have to have more diversity within AI as we build AI, or we're going to have a big problem in this country and all over the world, right? We don't want AI steering us and having bias against us because of how we speak, or if they think we look a certain way, maybe we should go to this school, or they think, oh, this is your background, this is your ethnicity, oh, there's more people of your ethnicity that goes to this school, maybe you'll like this better, okay? So ultimately, AI can put us in a box before we even know the box existed, okay, ladies and gentlemen? So that's why we have to be mindful, and we have to teach our children, college level and younger, about the code switching and about how to work efficiently with AI. We have 5 minutes left. I'd like to ask Derwin and Chase one more question if we can fit it in. I'm not gonna get you guys out of here a minute later, okay? Chase, my question to you is, do you feel there is a gap in our school systems in teaching our students, either college level or younger levels, AI education?
I certainly believe there's a gap in how students are being taught AI. And you can see across America, most schools don't teach their students how to use artificial intelligence, despite it being a massively important factor in how people will do their jobs in the future. But we're seeing across the world in nations such as UAE or China that they're teaching their students as young as kindergarten age how to use artificial intelligence, what a ChatGPT is, or different models of AI, and we're seeing them building upon these lessons as their students get older. And I want to see a model like this in America as well, because artificial intelligence is the future, and we don't want this gap to widen between people who do know how to use artificial intelligence versus those who are unaware.
Thank you. And Derwin, from your perspective, what responsibilities do colleges, edtech companies, and policymakers have to ensure that AI systems are not only secure from cyber threats, but racial biases?
Yeah, and I just want to quickly piggyback on what he said. So speaking from an academic perspective, as a young person that's now on the front line for that, I can tell you that same type of sentiment exists in the professional world as well. Like the enablement, education of the people in the workplace is exactly the same. People are leveraging these tools because the business is throwing it at them so fast, and they just have to figure out how to use it, and they're uploading documentation, and they don't know that it's going to the internet to make it even more widely searchable, and now you had just opening the door to all of these attackers coming in. Okay, so that same type of problem has been in the professional world as well. Now, from policymaker side of the house, administrative control, things of that nature, we have to demand more transparency. Number one is the education, of course. We have to make sure that everyone understands how to leverage these tools, how to leverage them effectively. But we have to make sure that the policymakers continue to push on the vendors that are actually selling these pieces of software, these tool sets, and making sure that we push them to make sure that they're embedding in the actual life cycle, earlier in the life cycle, more biased, unbiased, and more ethical type of constraints as well. So that's going to come from the top. It has to be pushed. We have to continue to push for that. That's always been something that's been there since artificial intelligence kind of came around. It was always that individuals such as ourselves have to continue to fight for and push these vendors, all these policymakers, administrators, and things of that nature to make sure that they are focusing on ethics and unbiasedness in these specific type of data sets. Now, it's always going to be a growing problem. It's still going to be there. The AI is getting more complex. It's going to get more complex. And we want to make sure that as people start to have more over-reliance, because it's going to happen over time, just like we have all the over-reliance on our iPhones and things of that nature to this day, it's going to be an over-reliance on the AI. We just have to make sure that we continue to push that to make sure that more unbiased and ethical constraints are put into all of the different data sets.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all so much for taking a few minutes to listen to this information. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Our panelists will be here for about 2-3 more minutes, and thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you guys.